In case you couldn't tell just by looking at the thumbnail, this video is about the character who goes by L in Xenoblade Chronicles X. It's not a typo, it's not a Death Note thing. So if you weren't here for a video about L, then you probably should stay and watch this one anyway, because I clearly piqued your interest with a weird title. So anyway, this video is going to be about L from Xenoblade Chronicles X, and won't even involve too many story spoilers beyond the fact that you meet L and he joins the party. L is a fan-favorite character with a lot of interesting things about him, and yet, in a game that already explains so little, he is one of the things that has the least explained about him. So today I'm going to be exploring a few different things to try and get a bit of a better lead on him than is shown in-game and than I have brought up in the past. A self-proclaimed native of Mira, this blue space goat is a representative of the only sentient species on the entire planet that's native to it. There are clearly plenty that crash land there, besides the Nopon themselves, and much more strangely when compared to the Nopon, who have tons of different examples of themselves everywhere around the game, he is the only example of his kind. L is a quirky inventor/businessman type, who, according to some dialogue, seems to enjoy being around the Nopon, not only because he can make a quick buck off of them, but is also very curious about a lot of different things, and is more than happy to shift his major market to NLA, and catering to both the humans and all of the other xenoform races they recruit and welcome into NLA, which can really be seen in his L's Conundrum affinity mission, where you actively choose which products he gives to certain customers. Playing into his extremely curious side, he is very interested not only in humanity, because, well, more people to give him money, and a new race with new culture and stuff, but also their history and culture. He wants to learn a lot about Earth, and he actually goes as far as learning English from the Library of Congress Lifehold archive that he found, instead of speaking his own native language, which gets auto-translated by the planet. So yes, that is why L speaks the way he is. A lot of it is definitely just because of eccentricities and things in his personality, because his weird dances and stuff, that's not language, that's just L being L, but him getting phrases wrong is actually because he is still learning the language, although bizarrely enough, this actually opens up a dub-induced plot hole in the way the Nopon speak. With the exception of L and the Nopon, every alien race speaks in more or less perfect English, but possibly with a couple verbal tics or speech patterns added in order to accentuate that specific race's culture or general overall personality and vibe that it has. That makes sense because we find out in one mission that Mira is in some way auto-translating all of the characters so that everyone is not only speaking in their native language, but also hearing that language come out of everyone else's mouth so everyone understands each other. L should be the only exception to this because he is speaking English and he's nowhere near as fluent at it as all of the humans the game focuses on are, so all of that stuff makes sense. And yet, the Nopon also speak in extremely broken English, despite Tatsu at one point, and L in one of his heart-to-hearts confirming that the Nopon are in fact speaking their own language, the Manon speak their own language according to the heart-to-heart, and L reaffirms that he is actively speaking English. This is because of the way Nopon speech was translated in Xenoblade 1. Because in the Japanese version of all of these games, the Nopon dialect and speech pattern is actually just a few verbal tics decimo, which was translated by the Xenoblade 1 localizers as speaking in more broken English, and that didn't have any effect on anything in Xenoblade 1 because everyone was speaking fantasy language. But in X, where everyone's supposed to be speaking their own language, and then the planet is auto-translating, they kept some consistency in Nopon speech patterns, although they changed the pronunciation for some stupid reason. So Nopon are speaking broken English when they should probably be speaking correct English. It's kind of weird, but that's how all that works. So, anyway, speaking of L, his name is a reference to Lucifer in both Japanese and English. El Saruf is just an anagram of Lucifer, and Rusidifu is pretty much Lucifer but pronounced slightly differently. This is weird for several different reasons. First off, X is probably the Xeno game with the least overt references to Abrahamic religions. This might just be localization, but keep in mind the fact that there is literally a cathedral in NLA, but they can't say God. They have to say the bringer of miracles. So still keeping a character named Lucifer but spelled differently is pretty interesting. This is also the thing that I know you were expecting me to bring up because I've talked about it several times before, but there is some concept art for L in the Xenoblade X art book that has him look extremely demonic, going from tiefling to actual demon. It's really cool looking, but what is that? Why is this there? Is this originally just something L could do? Is this originally what he'd look like and be the same character? Or was this some scrapped plot thing, where he was originally a villain or something? First off, his interest in humanity could seem a little suspiciously strong, where he wants to learn all about human culture in order to demolish them from the inside or something, and all of his things he's been doing so far are just putting on an act of sorts. He's also voiced by Krelian from Xenogears' voice actor in Japanese. This doesn't necessarily mean something, especially because Xenogears has so little actual voice lines where it might just be, oh yeah, it happened to get the same voice actor. But casting certain characters with the same actor has meant significant things in the past and future from X, and reusing voice actors from Xenogears specifically was done really significantly when Xenosaga reused Faye and Ellie's actors, so this could actually mean something. He could have been conceived as a villain of some sort in the past, but it was either dropped at some point or cut out of the plot entirely, but I wouldn't be surprised if something related to this origin or past of L is brought up and made relevant in a sequel. So, while we don't know anything about his actual origin other than he's been around Mira for a while, I can make a few guesses, which is what the rest of this video is going to be. First off, and probably the lamest one, is that L is unique in his species in that he's the only one who lives in this area of Mira, and in the sequel we go to a different continent and wow, guess what? There's a city of L's. I would love to see more members of L species, especially because there are concept designs. Not sure if they were for other members of his species or just concept for L himself, but there are several different interesting looking designs of both tiefling form and demon form of L-like characters that you could totally make as NPCs or even party members in a future game. I just think, oh, L just happened to never bring up his race, and guess what? You could go to where they live now in the future game, is just kind of a lame way of implementing them. What would be less lame is to make L sort of live up to his name and actually be somewhat of a fallen angel type character. This could go several ways. First off, just by Xeno being Xeno and wow, what you thought was religion is actually not religion, and just make, oh, the demon people are this universe's version of angels or something, and L's race was actually watching over all of Mira and stuff, they're connected to the Telethia or something. But I would actually kind of like to go the inverse, and have L be sort of like a demon that was kicked out of Demon World or something. You could go, again, the kind of lame tropey route and it being, oh, he's actually interested in other civilizations and stuff, and that's why he was kicked out and stripped of his powers or something. But it could just be, he got kicked out for some other reason and just happened to find love for the Napon and the other peoples just along the way. I think that would be a bit more interesting than him just straight up being, oh, the good demon, so he gets kicked out of Demon World. There's also the idea that he is actually the last of his kind, that there were a race of demon-like beings that lived on Mira in the past, and they're just mostly extinct. L possibly not even having access to his ancestors' powers just because of some bloodline dilution thing or some sort of other thing that caused his species to become less powerful over time from the demonic-like beings they were, instead just being into L's, and L is just whatever the last one alive is. There are also several different ways that L's species could have gone almost completely extinct. The first one, and while it's probably the lamest one in terms of explanation, it would be a kind of interesting angle to go with, is just that, yeah, as a civilization, their time was up, and they just happened to be dying out for the most part, L just happening to be the last one there. I don't know how that could play into something thematically, but it could be an interesting juxtaposition with humanity and most of the other species on Mira fighting so hard to prevent extinction, and then seeing the results of what would happen if they fail, being L as the last of his kind. I also think it's possible that if L is the last of his kind, then his ancestors were the ones who built all those ruins in Cauldros. I don't think we get anything remotely resembling a conclusive explanation for where all of these came from, and it being an extinct civilization that just happens to have one representative left would make a lot of sense, especially if a future X game doesn't introduce too many new areas. They could also have died out because of some weird cataclysmic event of Mira needing to prepare itself for the coming of humanity and all the other species on the verge of extinction, and it's some weird thing where, oh, we have to sacrifice L's species so that all the other ones can live. That would be a very interesting way to build up to a villain reveal of L in a future game. Just being resenting humanity for surviving at the expense of his own people. Or it could be that they were literally just bad guys and demons of some sort, possibly creating the Tainted in some way, which would lead them into conflict with the Telethia. L knows about the Telethia beyond just being there when a Napon talks about it. It's possible he learned from Napon, because Napon seemed to have the most beliefs regarding it, but would it be cool if L's species had a history with the Telethia? Maybe they created the Tainted. Telethia definitely hates Tainted, because that's the first time we see it when it's beating up some Sphinxes, and then basically genocided L's people in retribution for creating that. Maybe the demons created the Tainted, wiped out the Cauldros civilization, then the Telethia almost wiped them out, and L being the last one hanging on, stripped of all of his powers that would allow him to do corruption-like things, and basically just being a human with horns. So, as you can see, there is a lot that can be explored with L in a future X game, and I would be happy with pretty much anything they do as long as he gets to have a bigger role, because he is really, really underused in the game we got. But I have to say, if I have to make one choice of what they definitely need to do, after seeing all these concept designs of L's demon form, X2 better let him use his Devil Trigger. But yeah, that's all I got for this video. I want to say I'm amazed I made an L video this long, but honestly, there's a lot more I could have talked about, and I'm trying a bit of a different thing, going back to a bit more of an ad-lib style. My script is much more notes than just say all of these things, so that might be why it's a bit different. Also, I'm home now. I don't have any form of class until 2020, so I'm very happy. Not only am I gonna get to relax more, which means you're gonna get to see me fully rested, which is probably terrifying, but I'm also gonna have a little bit more time to work on videos, aka Xenogears recaps will start coming out again, especially because I'm mostly done with Three Houses now. So yeah, look forward to videos about video games, because I don't know how to do anything else. And until next time, this is Luxin. Signing.